Here we go, here we go, here we go, here we go. It is Markets in the Morning. Let's go. Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024, day before Halloween. This is Markets in the Morning, where we take a look at the price action of the cryptocurrency market, including the Bitcoin price charts, along with the altcoin market. Take a peek over there at the United States stock market as it gets set to open in 2 minutes from right now. We'll take a peek over at precious metals like gold and the DXY, or the US dollar currency index. Lastly, wrapping it up with any kind of news or financial news or crypto news going on out there in the world. Of course, the big story out here, Bitcoin trying to knock on that previous all-time highs door, struggling at it currently right now, unable to get through just as of yet. Looks like stock market's going to open slightly down. Looks like the Russell's going to be down about 10 points. The Dow's going to be down about 65 points. The S&P down 7 and the NASDAQ down 44. So we just can't quite get out there just yet. You had this happening yesterday, and a lot of people screaming, what about the Russell? What about the Russell? Haven't gotten out yet on either one of them just yet, but things have obviously been looking very good in here. We've, of course, been talking about this like with MicroStrategy, which has been a much more clear indication of Wyckoff accumulation that took place during this period. We've talked all about that. Bitcoin's just been more kind of at a sideways version of it, right? Just a little bit more tilted in there, but our spring phase happening back in here on August 5th with the major liquidation happening over there in the United States stock market, with the VIX getting up there to C19 levels. And then, of course, we saw high buy volume show up in here, extremely high sell volume followed by extremely high buy volume. And then we just continue to march up and up and up and away over here for Bitcoin, getting back to the all-time high. So price action has been behaving very nicely in here for Bitcoin, but we'll see how long it takes for it to be able to try to crack through those highs right there. So we'll come back to that in a little while. Of course, with MicroStrategy, you've seen it just continue to march up and up and up. As for others, as for the altcoin market, we'll touch more on this. Still just waddling along sideways in here. We'll probably touch on this topic a little bit more today. Like I've discussed, there's these thoughts that, man, is there going to be a sentiment destruction happening here in the market when it comes to this thing? My thoughts are definitely the bottom is in. Just how long is this going to have to continue to waddle sideways? And we'll kind of show examples of just like mental preparations of how psychologically tough it could end up being. Of course, we've seen Bitcoin dominance get back there to about 60%. Meanwhile, the safety trade just continues waddling back and forth. So it's really just kind of stealing it all from Ethereum over there. One of the interesting things is the others dominance, which has been interesting if you look at it through the perspective of like the last 2 cycles happening in there. Things have kind of taken off at the same time, really at the start of the new year, based on when this thing took off last time, how much time it's been in there. We're kind of right here on this edge where like Saturday would end up being the point of reversal. But outside of doing it and things like that, just structurally in here, I could see this thing dipping down one more time, because I do see a very clear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then boom, right back there. I bet there's going to be just somewhat of a wash happening right in here. That doesn't mean prices are going to crash due to that happening. What could that end up being? That could end up being Bitcoin actually taking the boom and getting right through the high. And in that particular moment in time, that's where you see that whoop. And then what do you do at that? That ends up being your bottom right in there. So all these signs are looking good, and these are optimistic things for the market. Just having to work our way through there. So okay, one thing before we get this show too far on the road. Happy Wednesday, everybody. It is Wednesday, my dudes. It is Wednesday. It is Wednesday, my dudes. It is Wednesday, There we go. All right. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you are all doing well. on this last week of October. I can't believe it's almost the end of the year. You know, when I do markets in the morning, I always have to say, this is welcome to Markets in the Morning. Today is Wednesday, October 30th, 2024. I still feel like I'm trying to remember to say 2024 and not 2023, and we're about to go into 2025. My brain is still telling me 2023 when I'm doing this live stream every week. And of course, if you tune into these things are kind of more fun. They're more chill. The videos are kind of well put together and articulated, but we're doing things live here and things kind of move a little bit more free flowing, and there's the hiccups and everything that happens in here. But if you could, please like the live stream. It's the #1 way to support the channel and for me doing these things. So where do we begin? One thing. Okay, there's one positive sign happening in here, and I've talked about this too, that sentiment got completely washed. The euphoria has been completely washed out of this market, okay? And I've mentioned, you can probably go find my tweet of whenever that was. It was probably back in here discussing euphoria has been completely washed. And, you know, that shorters have just been shorting this thing all the way up in here. Because, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me third time, it's not going to end up happening. It goes up and keeps going. But do you know what evidence there is as well to show that there is not euphoria in this market? And my Jules company, my Jules Co. stated it in the chat before the stream even started. Typically, these markets in the morning, by the time they get going and they get flowing along, we typically have between 1,800 to 2,200 people who are here concurrently viewing the live stream. We're in the first couple of minutes right now, so we're at about 1,200 right now. Do you remember what it was at when we were up here last time? The euphoria, right? We had 5,000, 6,000 people here in the live stream with euphoria. So this thing is climbing a wall of worry right now, and the euphoria is completely rinsed out of here. And that's a positive sign that you want to see. And my thoughts are probably, you know, if this thing can get through this all-time high, that's going to be the moment in time where the media machine is going to turn itself back on and draw in people. If you go look at, you know, Google Trend searches and everything like that, there's just like no interest in crypto, but it keeps rising. And I think a lot of people shorted this thing on the way up. I think they do, you know, they did, you know, after we had that big flush, that's where things started getting kind of interesting in here. And then we've just watched the shorters continue shorting the whole way up. But there's no euphoria in this market, and it's clearly evidence. I talk about it all the time. Like, I can see stuff on the back end data, you know, and that's from my viewerships, and that's from, you know, engagements and all those different things. But one of those things that you guys could always see too is the concurrent viewers that come into the live streams during moments like this, and you can clearly see it right there as well. It's like me, Jules company just said, quiet 70K. It's incredibly quiet. It's like there's no euphoria. It's quite amazing. This is what you want to see, right? So okay, drop. So who just said drop? Did I miss it? Trident Crypto. Drop. People are cheering for the price to go down, right? Yeah, I think a lot of them were hoping to get lower prices, and it's just kind of continued to get carried away up in here. So, okay, let's try to get a little bit more organized and back here on track with what's going on. So Bitcoin's obviously gotten back to the previous high, kind of stalled out here, struggling still right in here. We haven't gotten, obviously, an escape to happen over here in the U.S. stock market. I've been writing up in the newsletter. It's going to be released tomorrow. You know, we've spent some time talking about this. This time is different in the United States stock market. This time is different in broader markets. You know, in 2012, 2016, and 2020, those were all expansionary phases of markets. This is not, all signs point to that this will not be an expansionary market, but this is actually a rotational market that's going to be happening here at this. And we've been talking about that in Markets in the Morning for the last week or two. We've been talking about that in videos as well. It much more resembles like the peak of the 1998 through 2000 bubble and what happened in there, and the consolidation and the lack of breadth that happened, and also very similar to crypto in 2017 when Bitcoin was running really from like October, November, and December. And it was the only show in town. And then finally, once the profit taking began, on those, just like in the dot-com bubble, it took the profit taking on the tech in order for a rotational play to end up happening. That's the exact same thing that happened in Bitcoin's bubble as well. And that's the only explanation you can really have for a lack of breadth like this. Otherwise, you're really looking at a situation that is like C19. You're looking at things of like prior to Black Monday. You're looking at every time breadth does things like this, it leads to really bad things. However, it can also do this if you're approaching the peak of a bubble. And a thing that also probably indicates that this is a peak of an equities bubble happening, and here's just what we're seeing happening with gold at the same time, that there's already a rotational play that's already been beginning here in gold as we've been way up here with these things. So long story short, it's not to scare you to death. It's to say, hey, look, people are definitely going to be looking for this thing to be like a 4-year cycle, to be like expansionary phases that we saw in 2012, 16, and 20. All signs point to it's not going to be like that. And it doesn't mean, where are you? There we go. It doesn't mean we're not going to get that. I mean, I genuinely think that's what's on the horizon here to come next. I think the thing that would just surprise people tremendously is how fast it would happen, and then it would boom, in the snap of the fingers, it would be over. Whereas people would probably be looking for a prolonged expansionary phase in markets, but that it's more of a rotation out of big tech that lasts a very short amount of time, which is very similar to what we actually saw when this dynamic happened in here, where you ended up having NASDAQ, S&P, and all that stuff go up there. So anyway, that's what the whole write-up's about. Deep diving into that and discussing those dynamics. And that is the way I am viewing this market right now, is that we are not having a repeat of 2012, 2016, and 2020. However, the market can rotate itself out of the big tech, and that can last for anywhere from a month to 3 months. And when that happens, boom, 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 game over. So anyway, that's really what all this would be. I mean, even in an event like this, you're talking about, geez, you would imagine the excitement happening, and then it could, gosh, could you imagine if it only lasted like 2 weeks, right? If you got back to the retracement levels and you broke out, it's 2 weeks and it's all over. It could happen. But anyway, let's talk about this really quick. We'll go ahead and talk about what's going on with the altcoin market as we have this thing going on with Bitcoin to try to formulate a thesis of how the price action is behaving in here. Nothing has changed from this, right? So all of this still looks really identical to what I would expect to see happening down in here. And, we've talked about sentiment getting washed. We talk about how bad sentiment would be in a moment like this right in here. And the interesting thing, with Bitcoin, imagine that, right? So imagine Bitcoin gets this little pop right here. It gets like a 10% pop. It gets into the new high. It takes all the headlines. What happens on social media. They come out bragging. They come out screaming. See, Bitcoin's the best thing since sliced bread. It's up 10%. You can't beat that. There is no second best to 10%. It's the best thing that's ever happened in the universe. And then, what if this drift right here is happening over here in the altcoin market during that time? You're being bombarded with social media at the exact same time while something like that has happened. Psychologically, I've been through it. I've been through it even as a YouTuber when moments like that happen, and how the sentiment can be washed. And I'm not saying it's going to repeat precisely like that, but like an example of this, right? So we're talking about this style of accumulation happening down here at the lows. And I still think that is most likely to end up being the case happening in here. We've talked about this, right, to eventually break that down. There's like an ABC correction that kind of happens in here. And that really has still just kind of done exactly that, right? So the question still is there, like, if Bitcoin pops up, is there going to be a move that happens like this? And then we have the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then that's how you conclude it. And then you go, and that occurs during a moment where Bitcoin has maybe gotten out and Bitcoin's maybe working on its back test during a time like that or something, where you're getting that type of behavior to happen over here in the altcoin market. And that would be incredibly painful for people, right? But it's keeping the eye on the prize. Where do things go to after that, right? You already have Bitcoin in a new all-time high. This is an accumulation, all that stuff. But an example of that on when that happened, this is the 22.5 cent period, right? These are those people from back in 2020 going through the 22.5 cents, remembering how painful that was. And it wasn't actually the biggest pain of this time period was not necessarily that we actually just got down here to the lows and that we stayed here for 90 days at that time, which obviously we've been longer than 90 days. But it was the other thing that was happening in the market that also made that period so painful. And it was the things that were actually happening right here. And we can go back and look at that right here. Get that off the screen. Is that this was Bitcoin at that time, right? So you could see Bitcoin went shuffling back to the highs right here, right? Let's get this on a, can I do this on a smaller time frame? I hope so. Let's see if the 8-hour will let me do it. There you go. Bitcoin goes shuffling back to the all-time highs here, right? This is what we're talking about, right? Here, right? Goes shuffling to the high and gets out in here, and this dynamic happens right in here during a moment like that. That was painful, right? And I'm not predicting that to happen, but to say, hey, look, that has happened before. And when it did, the markets, people are screaming Bitcoin, people are screaming this, people are screaming that. But it was ultimately very short-lived, and then it whipped itself up, and then it got itself to play the catch-up game and go absolutely nuts. So Tim just says, does this move up in Bitcoin negate an ABC? No, it doesn't, right? So we're still talking about it right here. That, that circumstance has happened before. That dynamic has happened before. So when people talk about 22.5 cents and how tough that was back in 2020 for XRP, it wasn't necessarily just that we went back to 22.5 cents. It was this finishing dynamic that ended up happening in that range that actually made it so difficult. But then once we got out of it, right, what does it do? Right? YOLO, right? Big move comes out of that after that once that occurs. But right, so like in the event that Bitcoin shoots up right here, and then something like this grinding happens in here, like so, or even like this, right? And at that same time, if you had something like this happening, it would be a lot of pain. So that's why in the last couple of weeks we've been talking about, kind of concerned of what sentiment could be like. I don't cheer for that, right? And I don't know if that will happen. I can just give you examples of it, of being like, hey, I've kind of lived through an experience that was like this before. I don't know if it's going to repeat that experience again, but I want to share it with you of what it was like, because only 2/3 of people here were here prior to 2021, right? And I'm going to guess it's even less, just were even there in that moment in 2020. Probably at that time in 2020, my videos were maybe getting about 7,000 to 10,000 views a piece at that time, right? So it was, when was that? I guess it was just coming up on a year. So November was 1 year. So I'd been making videos for less than a year at that time when we were doing that. But we had been through an experience like that before. And I don't know if it's going to repeat it precisely like that again. Just to say, hey, look, if it does, you're going to see a lot of social media screaming. You're going to see a lot of being like, this time is different. I see some guy, a troll in the chat. Don't you understand the market dynamics of MicroStrategy and ETFs? Don't you understand liquidity? It's different this time. It's only Bitcoin. No, it's definitely not. It's definitely not. But to be prepared, if that ended up happening, it would be a rough ride. That narrative would get very strong. That very narrative would get real heavy. Be like, no, it's different this time. There's ETFs, there's MicroStrategy. It's only going in there, and people would feel that. And so to kind of prepare for that, if that end up happening. Hopefully it just doesn't. Hopefully it just pops up and off and away we go. If we get back to the retracement levels at this point, I don't think there's going to be any type of pullback at that point. The second we go there, I think we're just going to stop and then we're going to get out. I think it will pause there, but I think it will get out. The thing is that we've talked about like the ABC having to come in here. And I still think that's going to end up coming. But what I don't know is if Bitcoin's going to get out first. And that's a totally different narrative on pain levels for market participants. And I share this with you because it's November is only a couple of days away. It'll be 5 years I've been making YouTube videos. So we spend 90% of our time is always in markets like this. It's always in this stuff. It's only 10% of the time that we're all having a good time and everything is going up. 90% of the time that we're together, all 5 years, right? When we finally get through an exciting period, they're always just short-lived, and then we go back into these types of things all over again. But 5 years of it, we've go through a lot of them, and this is one of them we've been through together, and hopefully it doesn't play out, but if it does, trying to have that mindset of being like, holy cow, this is epic, this is great, this is how things end up happening in here before things end up ripping out. So we'll see if it does. Just kind of psychologically prepare if that occurred. Are you ready? Are you ready? I am. So I think, this is clear as day. Clear as day. It's what we've talked about for months now. But just if it does that, what will Bitcoin be doing during that time? And that's going to be the psychological factor, social media factor, and everything like that. So we shall get to see. But otherwise, 71,500 with typical, there we go, 1,800 in markets in the morning, guys. There's no euphoria. None. Nobody cares about Bitcoin. It's crazy. So there you go. That's the best thing about it, right? So, all right. Otherwise, we just continue these waddlings going on in here. The thing that in this again. Okay, so now back to this, right? So this is back to that others dominance right in here. That if there was like one more push, which it looks like there's going to be one more push right in here, it actually would make logical sense that there would be that push there in Bitcoin to get to that high, and that's that thing that would push this to get that new low, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, back to wave 4, and then boom, you get that one more flush to end up happening. Let's see if we can look at this on the... Right, there's just boom, one more to end up happening in there. Right here, there we go. And that could happen in the event of a Bitcoin all-time high. And that would be really ironic because that's typically the marker for these things to get pushed out. So timing-wise, we're there. So when we come together next week, next markets in the morning, next Wednesday, we'll see if we have that push in Bitcoin. And if that has already played itself out, I suspect it is. I suspect that is going to have to sweep that low right there. And then it's free to turn itself back up because that's the crashing structure at the end of a crashing structure. So, okay. All right, moving along over here to RTY. Sweet, it has flipped green for the day. So GDP came out today. GDP for Q3 came in at 2.8%, a miss. Expectations were 3%. However, that's no sign of any type of recession happening right there, right? So GDP was fine. I think PCE index came in at 0.1% below expectations, but prices were still up. I think it was a mixed reading over there in PCE. Obviously, we want to see the Russell break out of here. This is still the thing that I think we have to see happen. And again, I do believe when we go through market dynamics and look at this, and this will be the topic moving forward and how we're going to address a lot of this stuff when it comes to it. We say it a lot. This time is different in that it is definitely different from what you've had. And I just don't have the charts all built for it to have the NASDAQ, the Dow, and the S&P up in here. That anytime this market dynamic has happened, it's not an expansion. So it can only be one of two things. It can either be something like a C19 crash on the horizon, or it can be something like a rotational market coming to a conclusion, an equity bubble with breadth consolidation. And really, a lot of the dynamics in the market are all pointing to it. Really, it's just an equity bubble that has consolidated itself incredibly into the Mag 7, right? You know, NVIDIA, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, blah, blah, blah. And that the thing that you'd be looking for is the initial profit taking to take place on the Mag 7. And what I think we will end up seeing is that, you know, the Mag 7's roaring, that we're going to end up seeing something like this in this market dynamic. And once this starts happening, we're going to see this actually end up happening. So this will be an interesting thing to pay attention to in here. If we can get the Russell to break out right in here, and then we'll peek over at the Mag 7 at that time to see if we actually are getting pullbacks happening in the Mag 7 when that happens. If that does happen, that will be more confluence and more fuel to argue we are doing a rotational top to equities rather than an expansion like we had in 2012, 16, and 20. So more on that another time. We'll dive more into that as time goes on. But still, it seems likely this is probably the thing that's going to happen. I think the thing that makes me nervous when we talk about it is, you know, we'll have to have waited a long time for that to end up coming, right? Just even if you moved at that time frame, let's pretend we moved at that time frame. It's like going through something like this for this long, right? We'll start right here, right? Like we're still just stuck here, and then finally things start roaring right in here. It's like getting stuck in something like that for 9 months, and then it only roars for a month or a month and a half, and then it's over. And that just it happens so fast. That the crowd gets really euphoric really, really, really fast. And so just kind of mentally preparing for that, what happens when the crowd gets euphoric. It's very clear the crowd is not euphoric right now. Look at that. We have 1,900 people in here. We're back at the previous all-time high for Bitcoin. It's the wall of worry. We're climbing on shorts, right? It's been a lot of shorting all the way up, and I think the shorts are just continuously getting blown out to the upside right now. So this isn't on euphoric buying. But I think once, you know, the euphoria clicks in, or not euphoria, but the extreme attention kicks in once we get through the all-time highs, when things like CNBC, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg all put it on the front page, right? Which they don't have today. Remember back in the day, last year, once it made it to the front page of Bloomberg and it made it to the front page of CNBC, and yet it's not there today, right? Like, so it's like the crowd is not welcomed yet. The crowd got welcomed once it got above like $52,000 last year, right? Was it late last year when that happened? Was that earlier this year? I can't recall. I think it was this year. I think it was earlier this year. Yeah, anyway. So, okay. There you go. Nice little reversal over there on the RTY. The RTY had a little bit of a struggle there this morning with the release of that GDP data. But there you go. Now you're getting a move over there in the RTY. So this, of course, is the big thing. Let's see if we can get this thing to break out. Over there for gold. So let's talk about gold. So this, is, of course, is the struggle. This is another thing adding that confirmation to me that this is the peak of an equity bubble. And when we talk about the peak of an equity bubble, just know it's a process for peaks to happen in here. They don't happen. It's like being like this. You're in something like this. Boom, 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 boom. It's like you're in this wave. It's like you're right here in this equity bubble in the United States stock market, right in here. And I mean, you could technically be way up here near the peak already, but it's like you're actually being in this one when the breadth dynamic is doing that. And so that's kind of where we're at. So we're talking about the peak of an equity bubble. We're not talking about we're not talking about being like, hey, this is what it looks like, and we're right in here right now, and that's what's coming next. This is typically how peaks of equity bubbles end up playing out, and with the breadth dynamic, it's like we're right in here right now. And this gold dynamic that's happening in here is acting very suspicious that that market participants already know it, and that's why this is all happening. Now, the question is this just acting like a blow-off? We'll put Bitcoin back on here in just a second. So when it comes to gold, there's clearly 5 waves that have happened in here, but is this the blow-off 5th wave? See if we can get it clear. So it's just very clear. And this is like what Bitcoin did, that it's very clear. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll get all this off, right? So when Bitcoin was having its blow off, it was very 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Question just is, where are we? Are we in some type of slop within that last wave there for gold that could have 5 waves within the 5 waves? And where does it come to an end, right? Are there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 happening within here? Now, the thing for Bitcoin, obviously, Bitcoin hasn't gotten out yet. It has not escaped yet, even though we've seen gold continue to go, and we've seen Bitcoin kind of get back to these highs. Now, when this reversal happened with gold right in here, you could see that gold broke out right here, and Bitcoin was still in its final leg. So when that breakout happened, there was still like 2 weeks left of Bitcoin in there, but the gold bull run continued on, and Bitcoin just kind of crumbled down in here. Now we're back in here. Dynamic wise, would it make sense to have the breakout happen similar to like we had happen in here, right? This thing breaks out while this is in its last wave, right? Could we see Bitcoin break out while this thing is in that 5th wave right now? I think it's possible. But I don't think either one of them can continue sustained at the same time. We've never seen that happen before, and it's not happening right now. It's happening the way it typically does. One goes into a bull while the other one is stuck, right? So like this got stuck in here, right? What happens? Bitcoin goes into a bull, right? They both get stuck. Bitcoin gets back to the high, but then gold breaks out. Bitcoin doesn't, right? So this is going to likely have to chill out, and it's probably going to be a concurrent of multiple events happening at the same time. But there you go. Russell's still popping. Look at that 15-minute candle. Okay. All right. So there we go. XRP, probably one of the more exciting times to be in the XRP community with the things that have been going on over there with First Ledger. Again, that is not investing. That is degen gambling. I've spent quite a bit of time trying to figure it out and test the waters over there on Friendtech. It's not called Friendtech. What is it called? First Ledger. First Ledger. And it is probably one of the more exciting times within the XRP community. We're seeing we're seeing activity levels increase over there on the XRP ledger, especially for automatic market makers and users playing in there. I think XP Market made a good post, right? It's not a lot of people flooding in just yet. I think what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be somebody who comes out and says, like, I became a millionaire doing this. And I think that's the thing that's going to bring people in. I made $1 million and here's how I did it. And that's going to be the thing. Or we have to see at least one of these things get to like a $30 million market cap or a $50 million market cap. And then people start taking it serious. I think a lot of people still look at it as like, yeah, we'll see. But exciting time. Otherwise, XRP stuff, it just looks just fine. All right, let's move on over there to La News. U.S. economy grew at a 2.8% pace in the third quarter, which was less than expected. Like we mentioned, I'll go back real quick. Solar says, do I think that this is going to retest the 702 one more time? I would have no reason to guess that it would or wouldn't. I would not think it would. I don't see why it would. It'd be odd. I just wouldn't see why it would. So, seems unlikely. Okay. GDP expected to come in at 3%, comes in at 2.8%. Anything else? Private job creation total is stunning to $233,000 in October, far more than expected. Moving over to crypto news, Bitcoin profit taking continues as Bitcoin price nears its all-time high. Is Budhan next to sell? Cool. All right, Harris versus Trump. Who is the crypto industry backing? Dude, I couldn't believe it. I just thought it was never ending and this was never going to end and we were stuck in a permanent loop of this for the rest of our lives. But the election's in just a few days. And then it's over. And then we all get to yell about who won, vote counts, and blah, blah, blah. But I just didn't even realize it was coming up so quick that we have the election almost over. And then people can stop trying to tell everybody who to vote for. And everybody can just scream about the results for a little while. But I'm looking forward to that being over. And hopefully everything works out okay. So Harris versus Trump, who is the crypto industry backing? Bitcoin price set 68K euro all-time high. Is Bitcoin bulls eye gold next? What is they eye gold next? Most DePIN projects barely even use blockchain. True or false? Crypto needs to increase defenses against 654% spike in deepfake scams. DYDX lays off 35% of the staff shortly after a major consensus cut. Why is Bitcoin price up today? Bitcoin headed for a perfect storm to new all-time highs, says Bitfinex. Meta is reportedly building its own AI-powered search engine. Bitcoin hits 73.6K as fundamentals suggest new all-time highs are programmed. Canadians wary of adopting a digital dollar. The Bank of Canada fines. Yeah, nobody cares about any of that. This is what they care about. Get into the high, send the market with it. Have a good time. All right. Hopping on into the chat, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. If you could, please hit the like button. Let's go ahead and see what is going on. But that's everything that we got. That's everything that we got going on. So I did put out a video yesterday afternoon, too, if you didn't end up catching that. John, thanks, BCB, for all you do. And everybody else, hit the darn like button. Thank you very much, John. Jonas Fugalis, member for 15 months, says, what do you think about the RTY chart? It seems that support held at 702. No, yeah, it seems like it. But we got to get out. That's a good start. A good start for the day. There's still work ahead, right? I still think they'll probably go at the same time, both Bitcoin and the RTY. If they both go today, that sure would be the most fascinating thing ever, right? Or is it what it's always done? We'll see. Jonas, thanks, brother. 15 months, man. Dasberg, man, thank you very much. Very generous. Good morning, BCB. I've always enjoyed Elon Musk's humor, but it took me a while to catch his last play on words. His possible government position, the Department of Government Efficiency, is Doge. It was brilliant. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I got that from the beginning. Pretty smart. Thank you very much, Das. It's very generous. Wick 589. Of all the Wednesday My Dudes variants, the computer one is the best, but I hope you've experienced the joy of campfire ritual. Wednesday My Dudes. Yeah, there's a lot of It's Wednesday My Dudes videos if you haven't had a chance to watch them. Arm Day. Hey, BCB. Much love, brother. Where do you see Ethereum going so far, and what are your realistic price targets? I see a lot of YouTubers saying it's going to 20, 30K, which is wild. LOL. It really just kind of depends on confluence of things. I'm a little nervous of Ethereum just in general if it shows confluence at a particular thing. That. If Ethereum gets to right here and about 3,500, and if we're seeing a confluence of a lot of stuff everywhere, it would be like if this is all happening in here, and we can talk more about this too for a second. It just, it's getting harder and harder to see like a super cycle happening for Ethereum, which in all truth be told, a super cycle for Ethereum is much higher than $20,000 to $30,000. It's actually closer to $70,000 to $80,000 for Ethereum. Um, but first things first is getting out of the retracement levels. And if it gets out of the retracement levels and it gets out early and it's only like right here, we'll end up seeing. I mean, I could draw multiple things that I think for Ethereum. You know, you could just take a 4.236 of the range, gets you about 10K. But if you look at Ethereum from the view lens of like Bitcoin has done, Bitcoin has repeated 3 super cycles of identical size over its entire lifespan. 3 of them, and they've all been the same percentages, right? And so if Ethereum were to repeat just the one super cycle that it has had, crazy it is, it's even higher than $70,000 to $80,000. But the first stopping point would be there. But if you were just going to be doing like fib extensions and things like that on particular ranges, right? You know, these are just kind of the measuring places. Things are around 17 if you do the 4.236 of the whole thing. I would say until we see a breakout happen in the market, I'm less confident on like having extreme confidence on the level where Ethereum would stop at. And I think it's one of those things of just having to be fluid in it. Like a thing that we learned back in 2020 and 2021 is that not everything goes. That was far different from 2017. In 2017, literally everything went. And that, you know, when you get into those types of moments, having to kind of be fluid on it and say, look, there's a lot of confluence things that are happening here in the market that are indicating that we're reaching a peak. Like, for example, something like that would be if we actually saw this play out in here for the altcoin market. And a thing that would be concerning that every asset is about to stop regardless of where it is, whether it expanded, whether it didn't expand, where it only retraced or it got into new all-time highs, is what Bitcoin would be doing in this circumstance. Like if Bitcoin broke out in here, right in here, and then Bitcoin broke out in here, and then it pulled back, and then, let's do this again. Let's overlay Bitcoin. Let's do it like this. Give you kind of a real visual. And I'll take some of this off the screen. Okay. All right. Bitcoin gets out right here, right? Waddling all throughout in here. Bitcoin goes up. Bitcoin goes up. Bitcoin goes down. Bitcoin goes into a retracement. Okay. If this is like how this market plays out, and we see this altcoin market have this roar up into here, into Bitcoin. This is probably inappropriately placed. Let's put it more like, gosh, it would be so fast, huh? The idea, you kind of get the idea of what we're talking about in here, that there would be a roar happening in the market while Bitcoin's doing this. But then if there became this second leg here, if there became this big euphoric leg that came right here in the crypto market, while Bitcoin was only doing something like this. So if the altcoin market led the way on that next leg, it just, you know, having to have the humility and the fluid ability to say, hey, look, some stuff's not going to get out. And that's just like 2021, where only 20% of it did and 80% of it did not. And that wherever things are landed at this particular moment in time, that might be the end of the show. That might be the end of the run. And that would be something to watch for, is if there becomes this next leg when Bitcoin is not doing that, when Bitcoin's just back in here, but the altcoin market continues shuffling up. And so I'm just kind of waiting. What does it look like for Ethereum getting into that moment, which now Ethereum's at 2,700, over 2,700 right now. What's the RTY doing? I've lost the RTY. What are you doing? 20. Okay. But this is just kind of give you an idea of dynamics, right? And why do we talk about it like this type of dynamic happening in here? Like this, right? So here's the altcoin market back in 2021, right? Where the altcoin market still continues to push higher in here on a big move like that. I don't know if this chart will go back to 2000. Yes, it will. The same thing happens in here, right? That Bitcoin has a big new daily low that comes in here, but the altcoin market continues pushing one leg higher while Bitcoin's not, while Bitcoin's back in that retracement level back in there. So whatever occurs, whoever the winners are will be the winners at that point, right? But I could draw up 100 things for Ethereum. I think Ethereum will be a winner. I genuinely do. It's got a tremendous amount of user activity levels, a tremendous amount of development activity. People who say otherwise are just fudding it. Everybody's trying to take down Ethereum. Solana guys are trying to become the next Ethereum. XRP guys want to become the next. You're not going to take it down. it's the monster of crypto. So I believe it's going to be successful. The question is how much. We'll have to see what happens in a moment like that in the market. But even that 20 to 30K isn't wild. Like I'm just on, okay, look, like it might be wild for it to get to that just because of the market cap size, but return wise, that's not that crazy. That's not that wild. We see, that's, what is it, a 10x return from where it's at right now? Right. I mean, it 60x'd in 2021. So it's not entirely insane. Hey, look at that. One Ethereum is like equivalent to 1 ounce of gold. All right. Bootleg Kool-Aid says, BCB, why is Celestia going down with the Bitcoin near the highs? Do you expect it to take out the lows? I don't expect it to take out the lows. I think it's just doing this thing that we're talking about in here, where it's probably already ABCing. Just like that. Ben Heller, I've seen Bitcoin maxis such as Will Wu who are already claiming victory on X. Yeah, that's probably a good sign. It's probably a good sign. The next thing that they do is they try to convince you that that it's only Bitcoin, and they know psychologically you're starting to question it in your head. Is it only Bitcoin? And they will tug at those strings to let you know it's only Bitcoin. Your altcoins are never going to do anything. It's only Bitcoin, and then you'll start questioning it. Tim says, hey, does this move up in Bitcoin negate in ABC? No, we already covered that one. So thank you, brother. So Verg, gold $100 from a 4.236 on the monthly, 79 high to 0 low. Sure is. Dun, dun, dun. Thank you, Superg. JB Estrada, can you explain how we could be in a fifth wave of a grand super cycle in the Dow? How would that affect crypto and gold going forward? I'm not sure how it would affect gold, right? That's the big question if it is like a... like the things that happen is expansions between the two don't happen at the same time. And we're not having an expansion in the stock market. This like 28% of it is in 5 assets right now. But how could we be having a 5th wave of a grand super cycle in the Dow? An example of it would be like this. Building charts, silence on a live stream with 2,000 people, sorry. Right. So when I was talking earlier about where you'd be like in the stock market here, that you're printing an equity bubble, that eventually there becomes that correction and then the top, and that it's more of a process like that, right? And that this wave that we're in right now is like that wave right in here, and that we're essentially waiting for a profit take to happen on Mag 7, and that this is a rotational market. This is not an expansion market. And that's the big difference between what we've had in all of these, is that this was an expansion market, this was an expansion market, this was an expansion market. This is not, this is a rotational market, and then game over, is how this is working out. And the reason why is the breadth is appearing to show up in the manner that it does in these types of situations. We've since the great financial crisis, the breadth has only done this one single time, and that one time that it did it was right here, where it takes out the high, the breadth collapses, where the S&P, Dow Jones, and NASDAQ all set a new high, but the Russell just can't quite get out, and then we all crash and crumble together at the exact same time. That's the only time that the breadth dynamic has done this for the Russell 2000 since I've lost my chart. Where are you? There you go. Since the inception of Bitcoin, which was incepted right here. Bitcoin's the most ultrasound money, everything in the entire world. We don't know that. We don't know that. But when this happens, in both the 1998 to the 2000 .com bubble pop, they did this similar thing along with Bitcoin here in 2017, where the breadth of the market collapsed during this wave, right? And so in here, this is our C19 sell-off, which of course is the double tap bull flag breakout backtest V bottom, right? Then there's a correction, and then a collapse of breadth happened in the crypto market here, with Bitcoin going from $10,000 to $16,000. It was the only show in town, and the only people who remember that are people who were here in 2017. If you weren't, if you like to study charts, if you like to compare things, go look at what happened with the altcoin market and Bitcoin in that time period. It was Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. There was a breadth collapse in the cryptocurrency market, and it was Bitcoin only at that time. The second the correction started to happen in here, boom, everything rotated and it went throughout the entire market altogether there at the end of 2017 and into 2018. That exact same dynamic happened in 1998 to 2000 in the United States stock market, where it printed a bubble like this. And in this wave, the breadth collapsed in the market, and then boom, there was a rotational play that happened there at the top. And that appears to be what we're having, because we have not had breadth collapse like this in the US stock market in every single expansion. This is the only time it has happened here in every expansion that has happened, which this isn't an expansion, this is a rotation. I should say new highs in the major indexes, and that this has all the same signatures of being in this leg right in here. So even if we see this Russell get its way out, which my bets are going to be that it is, I think what will happen is we will see euphoria come in here. And it's like, we waited so long for it to finally happen. Yay, we got it. Boom. Game over. Not that aggressive, but over time, it'll be like that. But the excitement happens in here as this is a rotational market that happens between here. And this is where all that fun, all that excitement, all these things, these types of things end up happening in the market at the exact same time. And it's all very brief. And like I mentioned earlier in this live stream, 90% of the time we're together. You guys know who have been here for the 5 years. 90% of the time we're in this stuff. And then for 10% of the time, we're in things like this happening in here. But the vast majority of the time, we are just grinding through crud. And then when the good times come, they're very short. They're very short. And when we're in them, it never changes. In 5 years, I've never seen it act any differently. We get in it. This time's different. There's no way it's coming to an end. It just started. It happens every single time. And it will happen here. Unquestionably, it will happen here that it will be headlines of this is just the beginning. Blockchain backer doesn't know anything. We're going to start a whole new cycle. We still have until November or December before this thing comes to an end. I have no doubt in my mind, 98% of the people are going to hold onto their bags and it's going to crash and crumble on them in the end. And that may sound rude and crude and dark, but it's what's happened. It's just what always does. It just always does happen. Every single time. Because there's an incentive. There's an incentive for content creation to create headlines about being like it's going to keep going. There's no, even if you're right, it's brand destruction to come on and say, we're going to crash. It's just bad for your brand, no matter what, because the crowd then turns you into the enemy. So there's an incentive for people not to do that. In addition, all the affiliate links people have, all the sponsorships that people have, their sponsors don't want that message going out there of being like, hey, things are going to get bad now. No, it's always, hey, we might see a pullback, but things are still super bullish, right? It's like, nice way to twist that. But there's an incentive to always continue perpetuating the bullish narrative. Because it's good for sponsorships, it's good for affiliate links, and it's bad for your brand if you go out there and you say negative things, because the crowd will eat you alive if you do. So just know that. Know that that's how things go. All right. There we go. We're at an hour, guys. We're at an hour. So Russell having a little bit of a pop here this morning. We'll keep an eye on that, of course. Hopefully we can get that thing to happen. Of course, what we're also looking for is for some type of profit taking to happen on the Mag 7. It looks like some of them are, but Google's crushing it, right? Google's up 6%, but you do have Apple and Nvidia and Netflix down this morning. But we need something bigger than that on those to insinuate that a rotational play has actually begun. Otherwise, if you missed most of the live stream, go back and watch it. All these dynamics, everything like that, examples of what life can be like during those times. Having a bigger picture view is going to be the key here in case this does play out in here, because the people with the short-term time frame, they would get absolutely annihilated in here. So, oh, dang, not Oscar, my man. Me and PTW were just talking about you. She was like, hey, have you seen Not Oscar? There he is. Man, thank you. Very generous. Just grateful for you, brother. I often reflect on how different my life would be if I had not found your channel so many years ago. Anything new and exciting in the works? Be well, amigo. I don't know if there's anything really new and exciting in the works. Just so you all do know, Not Oscar Hernandez actually is not Oscar Hernandez. I have met him. Very nice guy. Thank you, man. And there's Oscar showing not Oscar some love. So, okay. That's a great way to end it. I really appreciate that. It was very generous. I think we covered it. I lost my train of thought of where we were at that point. I think we're at a good stopping point. Everything you need to know. You guys good? Oh, Andrew says, oh no, my super chat got missed. Okay, let me go find you, Andrew. There you are. There he is. He says, hey, I jumped in during that 22.5 cent days. I remember your stream. It had like 600 views. Really? Oh, Oscar gifted 5. Man, Oscar, thank you very much. Ron XRP says, thanks, BCB. Whopping 600. Woo, XRP bits. XRP bits, man, thank you. By the way, I don't think I ever thanked you. I'd asked you if somebody could go back and find where we had talked about going back to the preliminary support, and you had gone back looking for it, man. I don't think I ever acknowledged that you had commented, and I had mentioned it in live. I said, it's got to be somewhere in one of these markets in the mornings, but it ended up being that video that I keep pointing to in November 30th. But you were helping me get in that time zone of where it was. I appreciate you looking for that, man. You've always been helpful whenever I ask people that. Hey, can you help me find something? You always are there. So thank you, man. Another 20 by not Oscar Hernandez. Brother, thank you, man. Not Oscar. Wow. Where's our froggy? Okay, yeah, we got to get you out. Get you guys out. Thank you guys so much. Ethan says, where can people get the best merch in all of the land? There is a link in the description of this live stream. I always enjoy just saying, you can get your lady or ladies who are watching, get yourself some nice leggings. But those are actually very limited collector's editions. Those were pulled about a year ago. They're not available for sale. Maybe at Christmas, we're getting near Christmas. Maybe we'll open it up for 2 weeks. Maybe we'll open it up for 2 days. 1 day. 1 day. The leggings will be available. Get them while they're there, because you know how it goes. Just kidding. They're actually pretty cool. For at home. Not out in public. All right. Oscar Hernandez gives it a BCB membership. Brother, thank you. Thank you, buddy. Oh, God. Okay, guys, I'm done. Thank you all so much. Let's get you the frog. Let's get you on your way out. And, of course, hit that like button, everybody. Yeah, we do that. We do that. Here we go.
It is Wednesday, my It is Wednesday, dudes.
Here we go. Here we go. All right, guys. Have I lost you? There you are. Okay. Thank you all so much for tuning in, guys. Thank you all for being here. Very interesting. 1,800 people in here. I think we maxed out. What did we top out at? Can I see that? Where did we peak? Just barely over 2,000 on a day where Bitcoin is back up here. There's no euphoria anywhere. So that's always a good sign. It's always those days where it's extreme euphoria, where it's very worrisome. At this area right here, we were at 5,500 to 6,000 people tuning into the live stream. Let me just go see if I can find it. Let me get you that number, and then I'm going to get out of here. Right, because we were doing markets in the morning. Let's see. March 12th, 13th, and 14th. March 12th. March 12th was only, the peak was only 3,100. March 13th. Peak was only 2,500. Where was remember we had 5,000. What day was that? Oh, here we go. The 28th, right here, we had 4,800 concurrent viewers right there on that one. On 3/4, this one right here, concurrent viewers, 5,159 was where it topped out at in viewers on the 4th. The 18th, it would have already been falling. But you could just see elevated numbers the whole time. What's the 14th, right? 2,700 here on the 14th. So we're just not seeing, right? So just lots of excitement in the rally. This whole rally up, there's never been any. There's never been any like, hey, there's a big move today. Everybody tune in and checking out to see what's going on. And it just hasn't happened at any of them. It's always just consistently been that like 1,800 to 2,200, which is the normal numbers. So there's no real signs of euphoria. You see that everywhere. You see it on Twitter, everybody back and forth, people liking bearish stuff, which, that's the thing. When we won't go into all of that. You got it. Google Trends, everything like that. So there's no euphoria. This is good. So, all right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Let's stop with the rambling. Knock it off. Guys, thank you all. And not Oscar Hernandez, of course, giving all the super chats and all the memberships that were gifted out there. And, of course, Oscar as well, and everybody who contributed. Thank you guys very much. I hope that you're all having a wonderful week. I hope that you guys all have a safe Halloween. And yeah, that's it. All right, cool. We're done. We're done. I'll give you guys the frog one more time on the way out. Probably helps if I turn volume on while I do that, right? All right. There you go. One more time. We'll do it with volume. Why don't I put it on the screen too, right? What is going on?
It is Wednesday, my It is Wednesday,
Okay. All right. Did I do that? Did I play it the first time with no volume? Did I do that? I don't even know at this point. I got too many things going on. No sound, dingus. That's a text from my wife. There you go. Yeah. All right. That's it, everybody. I hope that you guys are having a wonderful day. I'm wrapping this thing up. We're done. We are done. Check out the newsletter, blockchainbacker.substack.com. Check out bcbacker.com, 40 videos and 11 hours of content, blah, 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 blah. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. If you could, please like the live stream and give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.